Hello, hello.
Hi.
Can you all hear me okay? Okay, cool. Apologies in advance for all of you who are here live and also for all of you who are watching the recording. For any dog sounds in the background, Kev is out and dogs are in particular gremlin mode tonight. They're currently like wrestling in front of me in the office. So as you can probably hear, so hopefully they're not too much of wackos, but right now they're just in particular mood. Yeah, as you can hear. All right, letting everybody in. Welcome to week 7, which is wild to say. We are halfway through our Feels month. Hey guys, we're halfway through our Feels month, and I don't know about you, but this one feels like a big month to me. And I know a lot of you have been sifting through a lot of stuff. I know we've been boxing with a bunch of you about all the things. And today is maybe, I don't ever like to say when is the most important week, but in some ways today is the most important week because it's an accumulation of everything we've been tackling to get to the root, like we talked about. I think it was week 3, really getting into our why and the onion analogy that I used. Today, it's about getting to the root and deepening into the clarity component of this month. Because as you know, first month was all about self-awareness and curiosity. This month is all about really building that clarity and honing that clarity so that we can take inspired action as we move into the month around all things fucks. And today is all about shedding the shoulds, letting go of the shoulds, stop shoulding all over yourself, however you might want to identify with that. So before we step into that though, let's check in with our feels for today. So again, if you need to use the feels chart and head into the Facebook group, feel free to. But let us know in the comments what you're feeling. One feeling word. I feel that, Autumn. I'm also feeling scattered. Charlie started doing this thing where he can unlock the back door. Like he unlocks the lock and then opens the door. And I'm blown away. I mean, it's like he gets outside and he's in our backyard, which is enclosed. So it's not so terrible. And when I'm on an hour call and no one else is here, so I've closed the baby gate. I'm hoping he doesn't jump over it because he's become a gremlin in the last, I mean, he was always a gremlin, but he's in a special gremlin right now. And he did that right before our call. Literally at 6 o'clock, I saw it pop up on my phone because we have one of those linked to your phone door systems. And I was like, so I went and ran down. And so I'm feeling scattered too. So I'm trying to settle in with you all. Okay. We have refreshed, impatient, scattered, tired. Checking in with our feelings, our feels. Yeah, I hope that this practice has helped you hone. It seems, I love that I keep seeing every week it's more specific feels versus I think at the beginning we were a lot more broad. I love seeing that, and I hope that it's helped you develop and continue to hone that practice for yourself. Because getting in touch with our feels can be hard, especially when there's a lot going on, which I know a lot of us are feeling: impatient, scattered, tired, all the things. So that being said, we're going to be diving into the shoulds today. And again, this is some deep work, so make sure you have something to write with, whether it's your journal or whatever it is that you've been using for this space. But before we do that, I would love for us to just do a little embodiment grounding session so I really want us to make sure we're in a good launching pad to get there. So if you're in a space, if you're not in a space where you can have quiet, where you can fully just step into your space, make sure that you take the time to move. And make sure you're also in a place where you can either lay down or sit with something supporting your back and your bottom. We all good? Oh, you all look beautiful and like you're in places that feel aligned in that space. Okay. Beautiful. So in that case, settle in, and whenever you're ready, close your eyes. And just notice your breath as it naturally enters and exits. Notice where it lands in your body. Do you feel it entering and going into your chest, your heart space? Do you feel it more deeper down into your belly? Take this time to really just notice. Be curious about where your body's at after the day you've had. Really feel the chair or the couch or the bed, whatever is underneath you. Feel it supporting you. Notice all of the places where it connects to your legs, your butt, your back. Really allow yourself to be supported, to be held. And continue to breathe. Do you notice where you are? Notice where you might be holding any tension from your day. Maybe you're feeling tightness in your shoulders. Maybe you're holding in your jaw. Maybe your butt cheeks are super clenched. With every exhale, try and move your breath into the spots that are holding any tension. Allow it to relax just by 1%. With every breath, just sink more into that space, releasing whatever you're holding onto. I want you to start being more intentional with your breath. Noticing your inhale and trying to allow it to come from deep within your belly. For 3, count of 3. And then intentionally and through your mouth, releasing on the count of 4 at your own pace. Inhaling on the count of 3 and releasing with your mouth on the count of 4. Continue doing this on your own time for the next minute of silence, just noticing your breath as it enters and exits. Now, as you're fully relaxed, allowing yourself to be present, I want you to think about all the work we've done in the last 3 weeks, especially centered around people pleasing and our inner critic and navigating overwhelm with intention. I want you to think about the clarity you've gained, the deeper self-awareness you've honed. And as we step into this week, really getting to the root of all of that, of our patterns, of the shoulds, I want you to set an intention. Whatever you need to allow yourself to fully step into tonight's work, whether that's gaining clarity or really allowing yourself to be vulnerable, whatever you need in this moment, really see it at the forefront. And when you have it, you can start to waken up your fingers and toes and maybe roll your shoulders, whatever you need, and come back to the present moment with all of us and Charlie. He was so close to being quiet for the whole thing. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so shoulds. 2 weeks ago when we ended our fears week with talking about people-pleasing tendencies. If you have your notes for that close by, I recommend if that's possible, just because you might want to look back on some of the stuff and patterns from the past few weeks, things you've written down a few times. But the first week that we stepped into feels, we talked about communication. And we went through the process of thought, feeling, reaction, action. And a lot of what we focused on that week, right, was our inner shit talker and navigating the thought that stepped into the feeling. And last week, so much of our focus was kind of all encompassing and moving through the overwhelm so that we could be more intentional with our actions and also with our reactions. But I'm curious, if you think about thought, feeling, reaction, action, where do you think the people-pleasing tendencies that you all wrote down, right, for yourselves, that you noticed within yourself and where they popped up, where do you think they land? Is it thought, feeling, reaction, or action on the spectrum? Pop your thoughts in the chat. These are all over the place. So we have reaction, thought, feeling. I'm curious, if I'm going to have one of you unmute for each one of these, because I'm curious why your answer was this. So I'll just go with Brittany since she was the first on reaction. I'm curious why your instinct was to say reaction.
For me, it's more or less just when I'm going through the process, I immediately just automatically assume that it's something like a defense mechanism. So I just want to react to it. And like really without a thought or something, it's a defensive, like, oh, with people pleasing, it's like, I want to be accepted, or I want this, or what do I do to rectify that? I just jump to it to fix that, to do that.
Okay, cool. Mel, what about thought? What was your reasoning behind that for you?
I was thinking of it like it's usually driven by, I don't want them to think X of me or Y about me. I don't want to disappoint them.
So the why was driving your reason for that, and that was the thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And Autumn, you said feeling.
I think.
You did. That was your verbiage.
Because I don't really know, but I think because I think a lot of mine stems from my own insecurities, and sometimes I feel like I do it when I don't even need to do it. Like I build up a situation in my head a little bit, and when I actually follow through with it, it wasn't as bad as I thought, or they didn't push back like I thought they would. And it's just, yeah, it's maybe like a self-conscious feeling. So that's
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I'm curious, if you have it available and in front of you, can you go back to the things that you wrote down are your people-pleasing tendencies, what you actually do, a few of them, and can you share them in the comments just as a reminder? If you don't have everything in front of you, you can just off the top of your head say some things that tend to show up for you. For example, some of mine were, I don't address or speak my needs. I overbook my schedule. I go above and beyond for the people I love. Those are some of my personal examples. So this was under the how component, right? So we did the what, how, and why. Okay, so Brittany said, I put others' needs before my own. Heather said, overschedule my time, don't express when I cannot be emotionally present with them. Jessica said, I don't confront situations, just go along with them to make the other person happy. Mel says, I become afraid of showing how I feel. Autumn says, I don't feel like I'm living authentically / living through filters. Mm-hmm. Alyssa said, I'm doing what people want to avoid conflict. Okay, so now that you've seen these written out again, yours and the others, if we go back to thought, feeling, reaction, and action, what stands out? What do these seem like to you? Do you stand by your initial feeling? Or has it changed? I promise you I will tell you the answer, but this one's tough. That's why we're getting to the root. Hey. Thank you. So we have some people saying reactions. Anyone else have thoughts before I reveal the magic? I think I see Autumn typing. Okay, so it's okay. It's okay. We all have different thoughts, and that's totally fine. And Mel, I totally see why you would say that yours is from a reaction standpoint, because it was rooted in fear based off of feeling, which That's obviously post feeling to the reaction. But here's the thing, right? All of the things you wrote, I put others' needs ahead before my own. I overschedule my time. I don't express something. I step back when it comes to situations and I go along with them, right? I'm living through filters. These are all actionable steps that we take. And yet none of you saw these as actions, which is super fascinating, because at the end of the day, people-pleasing tendencies, no matter where they're coming from, they are actions. We do something, we do not do something, or a lack of an action. We do not do something. It's all actionable though, right? And they're actions that are either in alignment or out of alignment with our fuck yes self, right? And that is not where we start, right? The people pleasing is the aftermath of all of the other stuff, right? We start with the thought, which comes most of the time or often either from our internal compass or our inner shit talker, our multiple names, Becky, Rhonda, Janine, whatever you called yours, right? So either they are leading the way or your inner compass is leading the way through a thought, right? You then have a feeling attached to that thought. And then you have a reaction, and then the action is people pleasing. So where do the shoulds fall? If we know that our people pleasing tendencies, right? If we know that those are attached to an action, where do you think the shoulds fall? Thought, feeling, reaction, action. This is kind of a trick question in a way. So we have some thoughts coming up. Yeah. And it's true. They do show up there, especially if our inner shit talker is talking. However, in the cycle that is, I drew it out on my little sheet mat, in the cycle that is thought, feeling, reaction, action, it's backwards. The shoulds tend to lie right before action. So they tend to exist in the reaction. And it's almost so momentary that you don't even notice that somebody's thought or perception or your own compass around what your feeling might mean is going to lead you to a people pleasing, because ultimately the shoulds come from your feelings. It's like, oh, I feel guilty. And now I feel like there's this should that's placed on me. And so I'm going to operate as a result in these people pleasing tendencies. And a lot of you have struggled to figure out, like, is this me people pleasing or is this actually my self compass? So today we're going to do a backwards workshop of how to actually get to the heart and the root of, am I doing this because this is my fuck yes self showing up, or am I doing this because this is my people pleasing tendencies and I'm operating from a space of shoulds? That way you can actually be intentional with your choices and your actions instead of feeling like it's coming from this sea of uncertainty and a space of shoulds. And frankly, most of us, we've been so programmed to operate in shoulds instead of our truth that it's really hard to differentiate. So this is probably going to take a little bit of time to sparse. But the best way to do is go backwards. You have your people pleasing tendencies that you shared, or whatever ones that are also on your list, right? So I want you to, in the first, if you want to do it like a section, people pleasing, or it can be action, right? And then your people pleasing. I want you to write out 3 of the strongest actions that are your people pleasing actions or lack of action that you feel like show up the most in your life. Okay, so some of you wrote 3. Put others before your needs before your own, overschedule your time, not confronting situations and just going along with stuff. Whatever are the 3 biggest ones that you see come up the most in your life, jot those down. I'll give you 2 minutes. All right, when you have those written down, show me your eyeballs so I know you're good. Beautiful eyeballs. The amount of sassy faces I got from that were plentiful. That was amazing. It was like, okay. Okay, so section 2, underneath that, and if you want to like number them 1, 2, 3, if it's helpful for your brain, that's fine. Section 2 is reaction / the shoulds. And I want you to then put 1, 2, 3 underneath that. And I'm going to give you like 5 minutes because this is probably the trickiest component of this. I want you to identify the should that is fueling the action. And this can be and often is something you have heard, whether that's from a family member, a person of authority in your life, something you see a lot in the world, a societal structure. For example, one of my people-pleasing tendencies was not talking about polyamory online. It was being open about it with my close friends and family, but not public about it on my social media, on my podcast. For 2 years, I was like that. And I did that at first because I wasn't ready. But for about a year of that, it was because my mom was so uncomfortable with the potential of her friends finding out. And so the should that I was hearing was you should be cognizant of your family's feelings and stifle your voice. And that's my example of that should, right? So what is that should that is fueling the people-pleasing tendency, the 3 people-pleasing tendencies that you identify? Take the next 5 minutes and process them. If you have questions about this, we're going to unmute and kind of go through this so I can work through stuff with you if you're not quite sure what that might be. All right, how are we feeling? It seems like half of you seem to still be working. You need a minute or two more. Are we good? Okay, I see eyeballs. Good. Okay, let's go around and let's share one of the things that you identified as the most imperative one that you want to work through from a people pleasing action standpoint, and then the should that was fueling that. We'll just go through my Brady Bunch order since it's easiest. Autumn, you're up first on my.
Okay, so my people pleasing habit was kind of like, I didn't because a few of them kind of fit this category of just kind of going along with maybe other people's interests or staying in kind of a neutral territory, not like going and showing my full self.
Yeah.
Out of fear of kind of not being accepted. A lot of times with my family, and I think the should is like, I feel this pressure, like I should fit this mold of this daughter that they raised me to be, and I don't really fit that mold, but I'm like afraid to fully show them how much I don't fit that mold.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so the should is rooted in, yeah, like I should look a certain way and act a certain way in order to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Is the acceptance piece, is that like at the core of that for you?
I think so.
Sit with that. And if it is, add that to it. If not, think on that a little more. Cool, thank you. Brittany, you're next.
Okay, one that I have written down was avoid confrontation to avoid problems. And my shouldn't around that is I shouldn't have an opinion or confront issues because it leads to bigger problems or arguments because of difference of opinion.
That's a big one. That's a me too for me. Remember that we can always write me too in the comments too if we resonate. Cool. I was really clear too. Notice how she like clearly identified the shouldn't. It was so crystal clear of like, I shouldn't have these large opinions, right? That's huge. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Alyssa, you're next.
Mine was hide myself to fit in. And my should around that was when I was younger, my brother said, like, because I'm so emotional, I won't make it in the world. So that's really resonated with me for a very long time, and I'm working through that. But because of that, like, I'm scared to be who I am in so many aspects.
So what is your shouldn't attached to that comment then? Like, I shouldn't be my full self?
Yeah. I shouldn't be my whole self. I shouldn't be emotional. I shouldn't show people. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Heather, you're next.
Yeah, so for me, one of my big ones is not expressing when I don't have emotional capacity for something. And so then for my reaction or should, I said I should always be there for my friends and family to give them a reason to stay, or to give them like a reason that I'm a good friend.
That's a me too for me.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that one. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Mel.
My action was I don't say what I think, feel, want, etc. My should, I was kind of debating on this, so I had two. Either you should try to make others happy, or you should make things more convenient or easy for the other person.
Which one feels like it holds more weight for you?
Probably making things more convenient.
Okay. Yeah. Notice how quickly you responded to that? Do you notice how quick that was? She was like, I don't actually know, but she knew, right? So interesting how our brain does that to us. We're like, I'm not sure. I have all these thoughts. But really, when that was so fast, there wasn't even a pause. You immediately knew. Your gut was like, no, this is the one. Cool. And Jessica.
My biggest people pleasing tendency is that I hide who I am from certain people, mainly my family. Like I've been living with my partner since January and they don't know because they just aren't accepting. Not of him, they love him. They just wouldn't be accepting of the fact that we live together. And so I think I kind of like, I was raised Southern Baptist, and so I just change things to make it fit what they want when I'm talking to them.
So what's the should attached to that action then?
I don't know.
Do you think it's rooted in, so this is just my instinct, and obviously this is why we're doing this, we can, spit back and forth, but is it like from a place of like, I shouldn't step outside of what my family wants?
Yeah.
So it's coming from like, my family wants this, I should just look like what they want.
Yeah. I think it's also probably rooted a little bit in me not wanting to confront in one of my other people pleasing ones, which is not wanting to confront people in situations. And just not wanting there to be any like,
I shouldn't like mess up the status quo. I shouldn't throw ripples into what is comfortable for everyone around me. Yeah.
Everybody's fine. Everybody's comfortable. They like Chris. But if I tell them that he lives with me, they may not like him anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So now we're going to work backwards a step further, right? Because what comes before reaction in the circle is feeling. So what is the feeling that's fueling the should? And you're probably going to say fear, because all of them are rooted in fear. But I want you to go a second level deeper, right? We've talked about how fear is like the overarching emotion. So what's actually underneath the fear? Okay. I'll give you guys a few minutes until I see your eyeballs pop back up. And do this for all three of them. We'll only talk about the one that we've been working on. are we feeling? Need another minute? I know some of you have been done for a bit. Okay, I see eyeballs, so I'll take that as a sign to go forth. Okay, let's just go in the same order and sharing the feel attached to the should.
I didn't exactly know
Yeah,
what
that's
word
okay. Let's work
to
work through
use,
it.
but I feel like for my family, it's what you said about like your mom's like dealing with her friends or whatever, that really resonated with me too. It's about like an appearance thing.
Yeah.
Also like a reputation thing. Like my family is like a
Mm,
known family in their like small town area. But so I feel this like I feel like I'm almost like indebted to my family, or like I'm like responsible, like I should be grateful.
yeah.
I don't really know how. I don't know exactly what word that is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a feeling of responsibility. It also kind of, I get a feeling of like, I don't know, tell me if this is so wrong, but if I'm feeling like the sense of dread, almost like dread if you step into that space of like what could ensue, is this underlying feeling. Unease also comes to mind. Obviously fear plays a role for sure, but I think fear plays a role in all of these things, and so there's layers to that. But I think, yeah, like a feeling of responsibility and what might happen if that shifts might link into the dread or the unease that I'm sensing.
Yeah.
Do any of those feel aligned?
Yeah, that unease, and yeah, kind of like not quite sure how that chaos is gonna upset things, upset the natural order,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. This like I just keep coming back to this unease, this feeling of uneasiness, this like uncertainty even. Yeah. Keep
Yeah.
thinking on that. Okay, Brittany.
For me, it's more of a feeling that I'll cause more problems than the argument to begin with, or that like I can't handle or fix or have some sort of solution to whatever the problem is. Like, why bother addressing it if it's going to lead to something else that makes it worse?
Yeah. So, like, what do you feel like is the root feeling of that concern? Oh, it's so
That
heavy. That's so heavy feeling to me.
I won't be dependable, or that I'm problematic.
Yeah, it feels like it's rooted in like yourself, almost like your self-worth.
Yeah.
I think it might be good to go to into the feelings chart and see like what root feeling comes up into the like the self-worth, like, because it's all from my standpoint, what I'm feeling and receiving is like very much of an image focused thing with this particular example.
Yeah.
And obviously fear plays a role, but I wonder, like, it almost comes across like almost sad in a
Yeah.
way, like at this like, or like this desperation of like just wanting to be seen. I don't know if that rings true, but maybe check out the feelings chart and see what like really hits home for you at like a deep core level.
Yeah.
Okay. Alyssa.
I put feeling too much and getting overwhelmed about my feelings.
Remind me what your should was.
Hiding myself to fit in, and then my should was shouldn't be emotional.
Yeah, so I think overwhelm is huge. I think that's totally, you just totally hit it on the head, feeling super overwhelmed. And when you get emotional and so emotional about stuff, right? The feeling of like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. And then it shows up in your people pleasing. Yeah. I think that also resonates so much from what we've been working on in Boxer. So yeah, awesome way to identify that. I know that's something that you've been working really hard on. So
thank you.
honoring that.
Yeah, for me, this one was tough. This one was harder than the other ones, but I came up with feeling guilty for not always being capable of being like present all the time. And then kind of a layer deeper, I got to insecurity, which didn't super resonate with me, but that's kind of like the area
Yeah,
of that, if that makes sense.
totally. I think guilt is bang on for you. And that's something that you've brought up a few times too over the course of this program. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's bang on.
Yeah.
Way to go.
I think I was next. Mine, I think, was rooted in a fear of abandonment. And then I looked at the feelings chart just now too, and inadequacy or inadequate was popping out at me too.
Yep. That's huge. I think that is totally your top layer, second layer. Inadequacy and fear of abandonment are always so rooted. So I think that's awesome that you identified that. Whew, that's a big one. These are deep. These are like, these can be really tough, right? It's like what drives the shoulds can be so fucking, such a hard thing to navigate with intention, right? But I'm really proud of you all for getting to the clarity piece. Okay, last but not least.
I had pit in my stomach because I didn't know what to name it, but then you said dread earlier and I realized that's what it was.
Yeah. Interesting though that you first identified it as a physical thing. Because I'm sure you can all place that feeling, right? It's almost easier to go into your feels physically first, which is why we do so much embodiment work and why next week is going to be huge from a physical standpoint. So yeah. Okay. Why this is so important, identifying the feeling attached to the should, is because we are now going to back one more. It's less about the thought and more about where it's coming from. Okay. And this can be hard to identify, but this is the part of the whole reverse engineering. The way that the fuck it method is about actionably taking like intentional steps around the overwhelm, around the feeling, around the anxiety, whatever we're navigating. This allows you to, after or when you're noticing a people-pleasing tendency come up that maybe you're not loving the feeling attached to or the experience attached to, you can reverse engineer and get to this part, which is the most important piece, which is this coming from my fuck yes self? Am I actually feeling this way? Is this truly coming from me and my core and I need to work through this process? Or is this coming from my inner shit talker, from somebody else's voice that is steering me? Because if it's coming from your inner shit talker and you can identify that, then it's a lot easier to let go of the actions than if it's coming from you, right? And then it's less about, okay, I'm not going to let go of this, but I'm going to figure out how I can be more intentional with the feelings and work at that place. And that's when it goes to like, okay, I can now go to my therapist and be like, I'm feeling this. It's coming from my true fuck yes self, or you can phrase it however you want. And it's leading me to operate in this way. And I know it's not always serving me, but I know it's coming from my true self. So let's work on, figuring out how to maneuver in the world in a way that feels more aligned. So with the three things that you've identified, I want you to, as best as you can, and if you're like, I'm not sure, that's okay, but give yourself 2 minutes to process and say, okay, is this really coming from me? Or is this coming from my inner shit talker? Okay. Okay. And when you have it attached to the one that we just worked through together, write in the chat if it was coming from your fuck yes self or your inner shit talker, or you can name them if you prefer. Mm. I love all of your answers are like shit talker, but also trauma. Almost every single one of you wrote that. So real. Trauma can really, really steer the ship a lot of the time, and is that pesky little voice in our head, right? It's very interesting that so far all of you have identified this as coming from your shit talker, right? Because if that's true, then these actions aren't in alignment with you, right? And yet we do them all the time. I don't know about you guys, but this exercise, and frankly, this is something that I haven't shared anywhere with anyone. Y'all the first people that are getting this goodness. This exercise changed the game for me with my people pleasing tendencies, because it helped me gain the clarity attached to why I was making these choices. And as soon as I was able to identify that so many of them were coming not from me, but from this, voice in my head that was coming from something else or from trauma or for whatever, I was able to separate myself from the actions and from the shoulds in such a deeper way and shed them. And some shoulds are actually things that are coming from us. And it's hard to identify. A few of you are saying these things. It's confusing because part of it feels in alignment, but not in the full way it manifests. And that's something to look at deeper. And I want you to spend this week. I don't really have a lot of soul work for you this week, other than getting more curious as maybe some of these people pleasing things. You know how you're making lists attached to like, what are my people pleasing tendencies this week? As you're noticing them come up, I just want you to maybe go through this cycle for yourself, like in 5 minutes, and say, okay, what's the action? What's the should? What's the feeling? Is this actually coming from me or not? And just notice what's coming up for you. And also, if you're noticing that some of it does feel of alignment, get clear on what piece of that is coming through for you, right? Because again, as we talked about in our people pleasing week, a lot of this is coming from our heart space, right? From our deep desire to be there for the people we love, to, fully step into this really incredible space for others because we love people so deeply. But when it hinders our true identity, our true self in the process, then a part of it is void of action in the way that is actually in alignment with us, right? So then how can we show up for people that is less about the shoulds and more about our deep desire? That's when the action steps start taking place in our fuck step. So just have some patience in that space. And sometimes we don't want these things to be a part of ourselves, and learning to love ourselves in the process of still having those things, which we always will to a certain degree, is part of also what embodying your fuck yes self looks like, right? So remember to give yourself compassion as you step into this process and as you continue to do this. But this reverse engineering, I hope, gives you some agency, because I think at the end of the day, these shoulds can feel so overwhelming when we don't know where they're coming from. And when we can gain that clarity, then we can actually take aligned action around them, instead of just feeling like this constant puppet where the shoulds are steering the wheel. I hope that this identified and emboldened you all And I'm curious how this process goes for you this week. So keep us updated in the group. It's been so nice seeing some of you pop in live and, share your thoughts as the week goes on. I also just want to honor you all for like being there for each other as a community. Like I cried a few times this week, like reading some of your messages of just, we've been so incredibly deep and transparent about a lot of the things that we're navigating in our personal lives. And the fact that you've all been there for each other through that process, it's just really beautiful to witness and such a testament to this group and these incredible humans and all of you. So thank you for being you, and thank you for doing this really deep work. Let's all take unmute and take a community breath before hopping off. I'll wait until I see all of you unmuted. And whenever you're ready, you can put your hands if it feels good. And we'll take a deep breath on the count of 3, and then deep release with your mouth. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Release. Beautiful. So good to be with all of you. I will see you inside the group and in Voxer. And until next week, bye.
Bye.
Bye.